Take the group photo, have a short break, be here 1 o'clock until 2. 2 o'clock is the feast, and then you'll be leaving after that. We'll talk during the housekeeping about carrying on for next year and thanks and all those kind of things. So, I did have a moment to get information to introduce my long-standing friend Kalakantha. This is going to be a little bit formal. Kalakantha has been a member of this kind since
1972.
He was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in
1973.
In what location again?
Portland, Oregon.
Wow. And he's been heading up, he was temple president for many temples, including Miami, Washington, D.C.,
Vancouver, Houston, and Baltimore.
Wow, that may be a while. And he's still hanging in there. And he still looks 29 years old, so that's, I think that deserves a round of applause. And he's most famously known over the last 10 or 15 or maybe 20 years now as the leader of the Gainesville Preaching Project, which includes mostly the Krishna House, which is what has really become so revolutionarily successful in Florida, and of course it's now rolling across North America. So we're really grateful. We tried to have him come for years. It's been hard to fit it into a schedule, but we're very grateful that he's here. This year, let's welcome him. Nice big round of applause.
Thank you, Prabhu.
One other announcement, this is, you do have your last shot at the brand new restocked snack bar. And you notice he even put a sign up that says, "Welcome men to retreat, eat like a pig." No, I'm sorry. It says, "We're delighted to serve you while you're here." So take advantage of that. And better eat it now that you take it home because it may not get on the plane.
Okay. And it's been so long since breakfast. 15 minutes. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Before we start, I have some good news and bad news. What would you like first?
Bad news.
Bad news? Watch CNN. The good news. The good news is that I have a couple of additions for your joke repertoire, at least one. Is that all right? Not that it needs, anyway.
No, it needs a lot.
All right, so there was a ventriloquist who was giving his performance, and he started making jokes about dumb blondes. And as he was going, all of a sudden, a tall, platinum blonde in front row stood up and said, "Excuse me, you are pigeonholing an entire segment of the human race based on a physical characteristic over which they have no control." The ventriloquist was very flustered, and he started to apologize. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." She said, "You stay out of this. I'm talking to that little jerk on your knee." We are going to talk about men's groups, why and how. This will be more relevant to some of you than others, unlike yesterday's wonderful presentation by Yaranath Prabhu, which was relevant for one and all. However, everyone here today, whether or not you can participate in a men's group according to your circumstances, everyone can benefit from understanding how they work. So you may also be able to share them with others, or know in the future how being part of one could benefit you. What is a men's group? 4 to 10 men, devotee men of roughly similar ages who come together regularly for hearing and chanting, recreation, service, and support. One of my favorite verses from Bhagavad Gita is in the 6th chapter, Yuktahara Viharasya Yuktateta Sukharanti. This Yukta means temperate or regular, and it means, refers to eating, sleeping, work, and recreation, vihar. So recreation, renewing our enthusiasm for devotional service through a variety of other activities. The purposes of the men's group, of course, hearing and chanting, sadhu sangha, and service. Developing confidential relationships. Supporting one another practically and emotionally. Male association to balance marriage and family life. And then, again, group service and recreation experiences. Of course, as a men's retreat here, we're especially concerned about getting the balanced association that we need. Some here are married, some are not married. Whether or not you are married or single, confidential relationships are part of the success formula for Krishna consciousness. Guhyam akyati prichyati, to be able to reveal our mind confidentially and to also be able to hear others reveal their minds. When we are married, we become very close with our spouse and we tend to feel that this person is our confidant. This is the person in whom we confide all of our feelings and thoughts. And this is good, but there are differences between men's and women's communications that we were discussing yesterday. Sometimes I go weeks at a time without speaking to my wife. I don't want to interrupt her. Is this being recorded?
Take a shots out of it and send it. Take shots.
Maybe you don't need to catch that flight after.
Because men and women think so differently, having male confidants is extremely important, and they have to be cultivated. We all have friends, but there are limits in friendship, often based on this idea of confidentiality. In other words, we really need to know that what we are disclosing is not going to go viral. Have you ever heard somebody say, "I'm not supposed to tell you this, but," or "Don't tell anyone else, but," this is breaching confidentiality. Actual confidentiality is a serious discipline. As religious professionals or practitioners, it's actually a legal tort to disclose information that you were given as a religious counselor. You can be sued for that. So it's called priestly penitence, that you must be confidential in your, if people are telling you their problems. But most of us don't have that service, at least most of the time. So how do we find that support and association? This is the purpose of a men's group, a deliberate, conscious effort to establish confidential relationships with other men. Here are the 4 C's of the men's group: commitment, communication, confidentiality, and confrontation. There's a nice devotee named Jata Prabhu who came to the Alachua community in 1992. He moved from California, where these things generally originate. And he was bringing the notion of establishing men's and women's groups to the community there at that time. So he taught us these 4 C's. These are the core values in the men's group. Again, commitment, communication, confidentiality, and confrontation. We'll go through them one by one in more detail. So commitment, ideally the men's group should meet once every week. 2-hour meeting, and also as needed occasionally for emergencies. So in your developing confidential relationships, you are accessible to the people that you're working with, should they need you. But the general part is 2 hours a week. Now, we're all very busy, but that's the commitment that's required to get the benefit from this association. Everyone knows the story about the 2 lumberjacks who were having a competition. So they were going to see how many trees they could cut down in an hour. So one of them started cutting, the other one started sharpening his axe. And he spent half an hour sharpening his axe. And the other guy had already cut down 3 or 4 trees. But when he started, he was able to cut faster and win the competition. So the investment of time in improving our own self-understanding and esteem, and also sharing the lives of confidential friends. That enhances our enthusiasm for not only our Krishna consciousness, but all the responsibilities in our lives. That's been our experience. That's the goal of the men's group, to nourish ourselves in a way in same-gender association. Communication means just that, willingness to share your own story, your own circumstances, as well as an ability to hear others. And there are deliberate processes that we'll talk about in a moment by which you really get to know the other person unusually well. Confidentiality, very strictly observed, even with one's spouses. You know, this is the tendency to share with our spouses, those of us who are married, everything. But when it comes to the men's group, it has to be very strictly held to oneself. This process, over time, it doesn't happen right away, but it gradually builds a sense of trust. Like we have a little safety net, and we know that we have a circle of friends to whom we can go and say anything. We can really discuss our inner thoughts, and not only we can share with them, but they may tell us where we are a little off. The confrontation is advanced, but when you feel that your friend is maybe not seeing something, some self-deception is going on, they are doing something which is self-defeating, compassionately and constructively, you can confront once that degree of trust has been built. 4 C's. So this is the purpose of the men's group. Any questions on any of these so far? Yes.
Regarding confidentiality, regarding confidentiality, like as a teacher, for example, we're told that you must maintain confidentiality if a student tells something or shares something with you, unless someone tells you that they're being abused, for example, by their spouse, or that they were physically hurt or harmed. Would that be true in this men's group?
No, because these are not dependent relationships like a priest or a teacher must disclose if somebody's in danger. These are pure relationships. You can advise, you should really take this step or that step. Good point, thank you. Sam?
About disclosure, like we were talking about confidentiality, right? So it would, when you're talking about the confidentiality part, are you talking about like intimate conversations that are had within the group, or just like general group activities? Is it like the group as a whole, or like specific things that are said within the group?
Confidentiality and what is discussed in the meeting.
Okay.
So when we are beginning such groups, not everyone will feel comfortable to. So are there some tips to like break the ice or like
Yes.
instill that confidence?
We have all these processes by which trust is developed. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me something interesting about his experiences preaching in China and India and in the West as well. He said in the Orient, the default position is to hold one's feelings, to not disclose one's feelings. In the West, the default position is to wear them on your sleeve and shove them on everybody so that you'll feel better. And so particularly if we're accustomed to being a little reserved and saving face, then it does take a lot of practice and time to develop that trust. So we use part of our meeting each week to develop that confidentiality through a series of kind of exercises and icebreakers and ways to get to know the other person deeply. Yes, Anusha.
How important is the confrontation part? It seems that would be quite rare, but maybe I'm not.
It is rare. It is rare, but it is a function of the group nonetheless. Because we want to present our situation to others to be corrected if need be, or to be advised. And it's rarely used, but occasionally. It takes, again, that's the most advanced. You can get to that point of trust. Anything else? Alex?
I don't know if maybe you'll develop on this, but would you say the best approach is to use more like an I perspective? Like, in my experience, I've done this in that situation, or I would do this rather than saying you should do
Yes, sharing one's experience as opposed to saying you should do this. Yeah, Brahmatirtha Prabhu tells the story about when he first met Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur in 1971, I believe. It was the first gathering of devotees in Mayapur, and there were just pandals and tents and so forth, and Prabhupada was in his hut. So Brahmatirtha came as a Peace Corps worker from Calcutta, and he was the only guest at the festival. And everyone he met was saying, oh, you should do this, you should do that. And he said before long there were big piles of should everywhere. That was why Srila Prabhupada brought him into his hut to just kind of protect him from the devotees who were so eager to advise. So it's much better to ask questions. This is one of the learning or listening skills that we learned. Better to ask questions than to offer advice. And in the course of asking good questions, we can bring the person to a conclusion that is obvious perhaps to everybody else. Okay? Yeah, if we have time, I can show you an exercise about how asking right questions can help bring people to a good conclusion, but we'll put that on the shelf for now. Yes, Subal.
Yeah, also in that confrontation part, it seems that there have to be some rules accepted, the rules in terms of how we're going to confront. In the situation, specifically I'm thinking of a situation that a person may not be ready to hear.
Right.
And confrontational sometimes means that you confront a situation that you may see that it may be not right. But if the other party is not ready to hear that, you say compassionate and constructive, but even compassionate and constructive is still sometimes you have those type of...
Well, you're getting to the same point that Alex is raising, how to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and do this exercise, shall we? How, rather than giving advice, asking questions can allow people to get to the answer themselves. For this exercise, I need 2 volunteers who are familiar with a deck of cards. And preferably somebody who's psychotic. Okay, Tom, you're familiar with the deck of cards?
Yes, normal cards.
Yep, playing cards. Okay, one other volunteer? Hey, Chaitanya?
Yep.
Okay, so Tom, please come and sit here. And Chaitanya, I want to just have a quick word with you. Okay, actually, I'd like you to write down on a piece of paper, which already has one right here. Write down a card, and don't show it to anybody but me. Okay? Okay, so you hang on to that. Okay, and you can just go ahead back to your seat and just send out psychic brainwaves to Tom. We'll try to convey that card to him, okay?
How should I listen to my ear? Just watch me. Watch it, okay.
No, in yourself.
Okay.
Tom, you just relax. Pick up those brainwaves, okay? And I just have a few questions for you, okay?
Okay.
So you are familiar with the deck of cards, right?
Yeah.
So in the deck of cards, there are red cards and black cards. Which would you choose? Red. Okay, and on the red cards, there are diamonds and hearts. Which of those would you choose?
Hearts.
Okay, and in the hearts, there are number cards and face cards. Which of those would you choose?
Face.
Okay, in the face cards, there are two male and one female. Which of those would you choose?
Male.
Okay, and among there, you have a king or a jack. Which of those would you choose?
King.
Okay. What's your card?
King.
Heart. Your heart. Very good. Well
Does he read palms too?
I have to say, Tom?
Tom? Good follow group.
I have done that exercise many times, and I have to say that is the best that has ever worked. right to it. He's supposed to say something wrong, and then I get to ask him a certain question. Like, for example, if you had said black, I would have said, okay, and that leaves?
Right.
Yeah, so that, see, by asking the right question, I get him to come to my conclusion. Yeah, this is how you can present a confrontation without upsetting people. It's the diplomatic approach to just inquiring. So tell me more about this. What do you think about that? What would you do if that happened? What would you do if this happened? The things that we can see that our friend may not be able to see. Diplomacy is the art of letting other people have your own way. Any other questions about the confrontation? Okay, so again, this is the advanced level. Let's go to the basics, shall we? So a typical 2-hour meeting would start with a kirtan, some reading. In our group, we've read dozens of books, literally, over the years. It's a very nice way to get little doses of books that, anyone like me, like you got a big stack of books on your bedside, hoping by osmosis while you're sleeping. So we actually read them, and then check-ins. Everybody will go around a circle and talk about something from their week. So how they're doing. Sometimes people are in some crisis and they'll get more time. Typically a check-in is 3 to 5 minutes. But if somebody needs more time, that's always an option. Then we do this process. Okay, so process, Acharya, where you were asking, yes. So this is how we build trust and get to know people. We don't do them much anymore because we've done so many starting up. But you would do many things like make a chart of your life, like all the highs and the lows. And then at each meeting, one person will have a chance to present the whole story of their sojourn before and after their Krishna conscious experiences and during. So that's a great way to really know somebody deeply. We do processes such as asking everybody to comment on a particular happening in the news or in the community. We do processes such as talking about the times you were most happy in Krishna consciousness, the times you were most frightened in your life, what is the dumbest thing you've ever done in your life, what is the best thing you feel in your life. Just the group will tackle the process regularly under the guidance of the captain. Now, I didn't mention that, but the group, each meeting is conducted by a captain, and that rotates on a monthly basis typically. So the captain organizes this, selects the process or the activity. Activities are a lot of various things, such as playing various games or sporting events, doing service, traveling, and all sorts of things. So I'll show you some pictures in a moment. Then at the end of the meeting, we have prasad, or sometimes in the course of the meeting, so that everyone can come and not have to worry about dinner. Dinner is provided at the meeting. And that way, people can more easily make the time in their schedule. Okay, so that's the basic outline. Now,
Question. Is it reading you read together, or you discuss something that you read over the week?
we pass the book around on the spot. Yep, on the spot. Everyone reads a page or two.
One more question.
Yes.
Is there is there a requirement for age of the other members in the
We're
club?
going to talk about that in a moment. Okay. Yes, please.
Question, in this group, do you already have to sign up for something that you're gonna trust the other members, or you can come as a recruit, like this test?
Yes, so, in other words, membership. How do you develop membership? Everyone in the group has to agree on any new member.
I see.
And then people could come for a couple of weeks,
I see.
try it out, and then a vote is taken. And there are anonymous votes. Any one person who doesn't feel comfortable, then that person's not invited. That's part of the trust building. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just give you an example of our men's group in Alachua. This is founded in 1992. Actually, this is starting our 32nd year this month. I was one of 3 founding members. We've had a number of people in and out over the years. We've been through deaths, divorces, all sorts of traumas, and we've been there for each other. Seriously. Now, this is me when I first joined the group. one of the processes that we did that was a lot of fun. Everybody brought the earliest picture of themselves they could find.
Oh.
And we all tried to guess who was who. It was quite amusing. So here's our men's group. This current membership has been in place for probably 15 years or more. Anyone know this extroverted fellow here? Chaturanga? Never met a camera he didn't like. And, so the age range amongst us all is about 15 years, different from the youngest to oldest. We have in the group librarian, administrator at university, a Lowe's employee, retired psychologist, a retired Navy veteran, an electrician, a professional hobbyist who is an heir, and a man who works in the health department at the University of Florida. So some people are working, some retired, but we all know each other so well we feel we can share anything. We do a lot of things together. Here is putting up fences for the cow program at the Alachua Temple. Kishi Hunter there, prabhu, in the front with the black mask, he's in charge of the cow program, and he made an offer that if the men's group came over and helped, we could throw a pie in his face, and we did. This is a whitewater rafting trip. We pay dues of $10 a month to the group, build up some treasury, and then every once in a while we'll take an excursion. So we all drove up to North Carolina and went through a whitewater rafting experience, which was fun and interesting. Something you want to do once in your life. Check it out. Bucket list for me. Right? Let's see, yeah, the devotees, the cooks, Madhava Prabhu, Gopinath Prabhu. We share political news.
What is that made of? Oh, that's not
One of our friends is building a greenhouse for his Tulsi, so one of our members, Madhava Prabhu, so we all came over and pitched in and helped do the construction. Like Amish, you know, as a group do it in fairly short order. Let's see, what else? Oh yes, we do some entertainment. This is another one of our activities, recreational activities. We have a...
It's called drag.
Yeah, right. It's confidential. Let's see, this was a cane boil. One of the devotees grows sugar cane, and so we juice it and boil it into molasses, and having a group together, taking turns on the walk makes it easy. Prasadam after a meeting. Hacky sack competitions. Water volleyball in the summer, which is a load of fun. Sometimes the neighbors, when they hear hysterical laughing, they go, they're playing water volleyball again. Yeah, this is another one of our group projects called the Blind Uncle Band. The lyrics are somewhat humorous, the music is not, rather tragic most of the time. But the devotees in Alachua love it whenever we can pull a show together for Thanksgiving. There's the band in action. Of course, Chaturanga Prabhu is the lead singer. And we all take our turns with various instruments. No, actually, if we have time, I have a clip of the Blind Uncle Band. Would you like to see?
Yes.
All right, let's see if it will play for us here.
Share the
Yeah.
remote is right there.
We're not getting any sound. So
Volume, television, TV.
oh, TV. So the purpose of the blind knuckle band is, as Prabhu was saying yesterday, we need to laugh at ourselves. Has anyone ever seen the, what do you call that? The horse race?
The horse race.
The horse race. Anyone ever seen that?
No, it's caused.
Oh, it's the most hilarious satire on ISKCON I've ever heard. Is that on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's see. If we have any luck, we'll see this satire. Otherwise, watch that one. It's better. When I find myself down at the temple, Mother Earth comes to me. Help us wash the dishes, wash the feet. And when Christmas is over, she is standing right in front of me. Help us wash the dishes, won't you please? 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 Service is auspicious, won't you please? So many able-bodied people living through a great city. Let them wash the dishes and let us be. We watch them also until we attain seniority. Let them wash the dishes and let us be. Let us be, let us be, let us be, let us be. Let us be, let us be, let us be, let us be. Don't waste your words of wisdom. Let us be.
Prabhuji, you want to perform live?
Pardon me?
You want to perform live now?
It's a lot of work going into that, and we really suffer for our art, and then when we perform, everyone else stares at us. Anyway, this is one of the kind of creative things that can come out of a men's group. We have a load of fun with it, and just being together and working together allows us to kind of work as a group. What can we do for the community? Okay, so this is one of about 8 men's groups, men's and women's groups in the Elantra community. Obviously, it's a big community. Ours has been an inspiration to others because we've been going so long. And there are groups now in various age brackets, as well as from the ladies' side, that have been meeting for, in some cases, 10, 15 years as well. So now, how is this relevant for you? Elantra is, of course, this big community. your community may or may not be sufficient to support a group, at least of that size. So I want to conclude by talking about how we can apply this principle of developing confidential association in whatever situation we might be in. There can be, ideally these meetings are from local people with whom we have an interest in developing closer relationships. If that's not possible, virtual meetings can fill in to a large extent. During the pandemic, we continued our meetings online every week for a year or two, and it was satisfying. Not quite as fun perhaps, but satisfying. So even if the men's group that you might be part of would be a virtual one, due to your work schedule, travel schedule, or the size of the community you are in, please consider taking part in a men's group. Now, you asked about the age. We estimate like 15 years is a pretty good range from our group. So based on that, under 30 to 45, and then 46 and above, maybe even 60 and above in some cases. Because people will be in different stages of life. Yes, Mohammed?
So when you're traveling, they're all meeting, you come in virtually?
Sometimes.
So you're okay with that?
Sometimes, yeah, depending on the circumstances. If it's an extended trip, then we would probably just sign out for a month or something. Okay. Yes, but
It looks like the group is very homogeneous in terms of background and is that a consideration when you put a group together?
it was more a function of the demographics from which we grew, but it's not necessary. People can definitely represent different backgrounds. It may look homogenous to you, but it is not. We got a couple of Trump voters in there. We got people who are like military veterans, kind of have a more disciplined manner. We got kind of freewheeling types. We got people who are millionaires. We have people who live from check to check. It's quite diverse. So the background is not that important. Really, the willingness to make a commitment is the most important thing. Yes, Prabhu?
I noticed when I was, so I'm a parent of 2 young kids right now, and when all those guys were in their 20s, we just naturally met a lot of retreats, TSI, events like those. And we all got married, started having kids. This distance started to creep in, so we're not meeting as much.
Right.
And all the men started to just not share outwards as much. I'm just curious, any practical things you'd like to share, how to overcome that?
Right, it takes discipline. That this is something I need to conscientiously do. It is important, and I've got to make a commitment to do it. That's exactly the scenario that you're describing. That's what happens when we go from single to married life. Yeah. And then we feel like all the association we need is our spouse, our family, but then it becomes inadequate. Right, so we need that same male support, just like we're experiencing this weekend. Singapore.
I think what the people were trying to ask is, many black people join your group.
We're gonna soon find out.
Well, Prabhu, you have to remember that we're in Florida, so they have their own group. No, there's no restrictions. We have, our group has not had any black body devotees. We've had Indian body, Hispanic body, not black body, but other groups have. And that is, anyway, yeah. If that was your question, or was he extrapolating something? Yes.
So we sort of without really naming it a men's group, we have something in Indianapolis which we are growing. I was just wondering, homogeneity, heterogeneity. What about in the extent to which they have been in Krishna consciousness? in terms of years or in terms of experience.
Right. The time in Krishna consciousness is not as important as the commitment to practicing Krishna consciousness.
I guess.
But the relationships, once they develop, it is less important. And even if somebody, for example, were to sort of fade away from their spiritual practices but wanted to be part of that, that's totally viable. All right. Yes, Muhammad.
So, is it a problem if I'm 50 and you're 50 and I'm a new bhakta and you've been a devotee for 50 years? Doesn't that create a problem in relating experientially, like your life are so different? And you might freak them out by sharing something, and you've been a devotee 50 years and you're dealing with this.
Right. It's the same question. Really, the confidentiality and commitment will transcend any difference in background. We've had this experience of people who have been fairly new devotees joining our group, who are mostly more seasoned devotees. And it went relatively well. There was no big hiccups about it. But then those people didn't stay. So it could be that was a reflection of their own lack of interest in Krishna consciousness. Because the meetings are definitely Krishna conscious. They are all about kirtan and reading and talking Krishna kirtan. So at least they have to have an appreciation for that, probably to feel at home. Abraham?
Is there issues when somebody is kicked out of the group, or has that happened?
It has.
Don't do that if you tell it.
No, actually, he was Jewish. Before we really understood the discipline of everyone having to agree, or actually what happened, this man came in for a couple of sessions, and one of the devotees felt very uncomfortable with him. So he would not endorse, and that was it. We could not override that because he had already established himself in this circle of trust. So that devotee was not invited. He was unhappy about it, and but the group stayed together.
How do you deal with that? Kicking someone out?
We don't kick them out. We just don't let them in. Yeah. Before anyone can join, everybody has to agree this person can join.
But you can't.
I have a question on that line.
Yes.
How do you do that in a really small community without avoiding like a lot of tension?
Yeah, that's something to consider before even inviting people to take part.
Sometimes people might want to be part.
Yes. In that case, you really want to make sure you have a good reason. Good reason. The reason in this particular case is the devotee did not trust this person's ability to be confidential.
You mentioned a group of like list of activities that you do, like kirtan, prasadam reading. Is there a specific time set for people sharing what they're going through and like?
Yeah, that's called the check-in.
Okay.
Yeah, kirtan reading and check-in.
Okay, and sometimes it seems that people open up more when it's one-on-one than in a group. But
that's the idea, to develop enough trust that you can open up to the group.
Okay.
Yeah, but it takes time. That's the point. It takes commitment. Every week you're there, you get to know them, you know everything about them, you hear them disclose, then you can disclose more easily. And if somebody violates confidentiality, it's a heavy thing.
I've got a general question, and it's not appropriate to tell me, but the band and the whole presentation you're making here, and Yadunath's presentation is so much of what we've been doing. Really, there's an underlying sense that you can be a devotee and be a human being at the same time. You know, Ravinda Surpuri used to say, probably still does it, if you chant Hare Krishna really sincerely, for many, many years, you'll become a pure devotee. And if you continue chanting Hare Krishna, you become a human being. You know, and there are sometimes within our society, maybe certain regions or certain subcultures, whatever, Well, the whole idea of being able to laugh at yourself, to stand up there on stage and sing a song about we ain't gonna clean any dishes, would be considered like, you know, can you get away with that? How can you say something like that? So just your thoughts on that. It just seems that that's such a critical element for us to be mature, and your group's obviously done that. But we deal with a society where there's some people, if you say, be part of this group, we're gonna make jokes about whatever, you know, that's blasphemous, and they're ready to like, you're offending Guru, you're offending God, you're offending me, and, you know, there can be a lot of tension and you know, worse than tension, potential splits over whether you can laugh at ourselves or whether no, we know the right way to do it, and you're off.
Right. Did you tell me that at the anti-cult conference, is it one of the qualities of a cult is that you're not allowed to laugh at the
Oh,
organization?
that's close enough.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. You're not allowed to laugh at the leader or laugh at the cult or.
Yeah, you can't question it.
Yeah, yes. Right. To me, being part of the men's group is a big step towards becoming humanoid and realizing that we are still conditioned souls who are dealing with realities in this world and doing it in a way that is bringing us closer to Krishna. And part of that is just the willingness to accept the absurdity of life in the material world. To be able to laugh is such a great antidote to depression and problems, which we all suffer from. So those people who don't have the ability to laugh at themselves, really, are not the kind of people who would benefit from a group like this, because there's already a sense that I know everything. And this is really rooted in a lot of insecurity. Like, I've got to hold on to something so tightly, I can't bear to risk having it shaken in any way, my faith in it shaken or questioned. You know, our group, homogenous as it may be, has a very diverse degree of involvement in Krishna consciousness. Everybody loves to hear and chant, but some people are pretty estranged from the movement, or inactive, and you know, they consider me a religious fanatic in the group, but they allow me to stay.
They haven't kicked you out yet.
Not yet. Sajid?
Yeah, I have something to share. It kind of goes along a little bit with what Mahatma was talking about. You know,
Maybe you could stand up and speak loudly so we can all.
Yeah. I belong to a group, AA, we've heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, as I had a drug problem for a long time. Now, I found out in this group, I've known these people for a long time, 15, 20 years, even longer than that. And sometimes it's all men, sometimes women are involved in it. But there's a home group, which I belong to for quite some time. We've gotten very, very close. The interesting thing here is that I've come out here, I only know a few people here. And there's something missing in that group that we have here.
That we have here.
Yes, that we have here. Mahat was talking about somebody being new to the movement and somebody being older to the movement. There'd be some kind of disparity because your experiences might not be the same as mine. And no matter how much I try to fit into this group, you can't because they're not devotees. And that's just missing. And it's really, I found that out. I think that's the reason why I came here. I found that out because I've been craving that for so long, trying to pull it out of materialistic people or people that are not in touch with our movement or the holy name.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That's very germane to this discussion, because the Vaishnava Men group has that unique quality of the shared spiritual experience. And somebody who doesn't have it is not likely to fit in well with the group.
I have a question that was, you know, one of the beautiful things about Krishna consciousness is how broad it is and how many people are included in our society. But sometimes I wonder if we need to create some sort of frameworks where people can be encouraged by people of similar background and quality. And you know, I know it's not a politically correct question these days, but it's a real question that are there certain frameworks that would allow people to be in their comfort zone while still being in the greater Vaishnava community? Would there be a positive to that, to allow people to be, you know?
Right. And so that there can be some diversity in the group, people who are devotees, people who are friendly but not devotees, is that?
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying like I've grown up around ISKCON obviously my whole life, and I know that even in the Indian community, some Western devotees, they think of Indian people as a homogenous group, and if you know anyone from India long enough, every region of India has its own very unique and distinct kind of qualities. I'm just wondering out loud, is there some benefit to having some sort of an ability to collect in these maybe material structures? You know, would it help our Krishna consciousness and our community to have some vessel that allows for both? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm being clear.
Like, would it be helpful to have a Bengali men's group and a Bihari men's group?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Not for everyone, but I'm just curious your thoughts on this.
You know, yeah, my thoughts are that the commonality is Krishna consciousness. And that really helps transcend a lot of those cultural differences. That's been our experience. And here I believe it would apply as well. That we should, in other words, think like the Swaminarayan folks, primarily Gujarati community exclusively, right? Yeah. So no, there's actually no boundaries at all. If there's a commitment to Krishna consciousness, these groups can work. Okay, that's the part of it.
2 points in regard to Gordani's point. It is described as we should seek like-minded association. And I didn't quite hear all of those comments. What I thought I heard was you saying something about an addiction group, and you're kind of looking for devotee association. There is actually now a group called
Bhakti Recovery.
Bhakti Recovery,
Yeah.
and it's I've referred a lot of people to it, a lot of people at the council, and they've taken really a lot from that group. They find it very, very helpful.
Based on the 12-step program.
Based on
Because I can add to that, it's very new devotees and some seasoned devotees as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to give them as an example of a virtual group that has functioned. And the question is, can we come out of this meeting, you know, this is a 6th annual mantra retreat, can we come out of this meeting perhaps with a couple of groups that can be spawned, either locally or virtually? That's going to be our exercise when we finish in a moment. So other questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment about the like-minded.
Comment about like-minded.
Yeah, because I find that beyond nationality and culture and race is the personality. That, you know, some people are more they like to joke, they're more playful. Some people are more serious. Some people are more talkative. So in my experience, it's been the personality, because I have close friends of different countries, but it's Krishna consciousness and the personality together. And from there, maybe naturally a group can be formed or something. But I remember one devotee that I met last year at Mantra. We've been in touch since, and he's opened up to me and I opened up to him. So naturally there was not a group, but like a connection that was formed.
Yes, some people will be more extroverted, some more introverted. So you would think the extroverted types would lend themselves more readily to a group like this. It really balances out once that trust is developed. You know, introverted people actually gain a lot from having connection, and extroverted people gain a lot from having a deeper connection, right? Oh, I'm sorry, Shri Krishna, who are you back?
The question is, in ISKCON, I've generally found that the peer relationships are very less. Either you have a relationship with a senior devotee or you're preaching to someone. The peer relationships are always a difficult thing. I want you to explain why is this happening and what is the solution?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, in the 11th canto, we read that every devotee needs mentors and peers and students to have a balanced spiritual life and relate to each one accordingly. So his question is, peer association is very difficult sometimes. We may be teaching people, we may have mentors, but so this is this is all about peer association. All about peer association. There's no greater or lesser amongst the men's group. It's a group of men who are equals, who are peers, who are sharing their lives with one another. And your point is well taken. It doesn't happen automatically. It takes a conscious effort to develop.
So I remember, I was in South Africa
in the 80s, and one day during prasadam, we had Americans, we had South Africans, white South Africans, Indian South Africans, and we were taking prasadam, and I just looked around, and all the Americans were taking together, all the South Africans were taking together. Then, maybe 10 years ago, I was in Dubai, and they were taking me to the Sunday feast, and they said, well, we're going to do the Bengali Sunday feast, and then we're going to do the other Sunday feast. So if I'm going back to my temple and I want to organize this program, I get the message out, and then all the South Indians want to do it together, and all the Bengalis want to do it together. Should I say no, or should I say okay? Should I just let it flow? This is Prabhu's question. I'm just extending it. What would you, if you were in that position, what would you say?
The assembly of devotees in the men's group has to be very natural, so there'd be no problem if the Bengali group and the Gujarati group or whatever wanted to start. We do interact with other men's groups, so that there is some opportunity for cross-pollination and also group activities. So however the group could start would be my opinion on that. The important thing is getting it started somehow or other. Okay, we're going to wrap up in a moment here. Go to Hare.
My question, the simple question is, in your case, it's a group of quite seasoned devotees, it seems. For newer devotees coming together in a men's group, there could be a tendency to lose the Krishna core, keeping Krishna in the center, where it just becomes like a social fun group, which might also be, there's nothing bad with that, but how important is it to keep the spiritual center, keep the activities Krishna conscious? I was thinking, just like, as a devil's advocate, someone could say, well, we can be human beings while just chanting Hare Krishna, we can be human beings by chanting funny songs. So it's not necessary to be a human being just by chanting funny songs. So what's the right way? Yes.
Each group will have its own individual flavor. I've observed in Alachua that some groups looked at our group and said, you're a little too frivolous, and we want to just read the Shastra every week, and we'll just get together and read Shastra. And those groups have not had the longevity that ours has had. I believe that ours goes on because we have fun, and we know it's going to be fun. It's a fun part of our week. So, but at the same time, it's very individual. I asked them in the group for advice for this presentation, and that was one of their main messages, to understand that each group is going to have its individual flavor and composition and priority. So there's no hard and fast rules. I really did want to spend a little time with the exercise. We have about 28 minutes. How about just take questions from people who haven't asked it yet, and then we'll get into our exercise, okay?
I have a question.
Okay, we'll get to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's a wonderful way, the way you describe. We spoke about cultural homogeneity differences, but what about even within Krishna consciousness, there are different sects. So any thoughts about getting different groups? Because we have friends across different sects too.
Right. Narayan Maharaj followers, Ritvik followers. We haven't gone there yet. We haven't actually been confronted with that issue so far. So I can't really answer. That might be a little, I would be pushing the boundaries.
Okay.
But the basis is trust, confidentiality, and a focus on Krishna consciousness too. Shared experience. Yes, very possible.
It's a very simple question. So I just moved from Cleveland area to northern New Jersey just about a year ago, and my Cleveland neighbors, two boys, were very good friends of mine, and one of the boys also moved to New Jersey from wherever he studied college, and he became very friendly with me, and he joins our hiking group. We have a hiking group in Tobacco. Sanjeev Prabhu is the leader of the hiking group. He's an expert hiker. And on our first hike, he found the waterfall which people with advanced equipment couldn't find. All sorts of technological gadgets they had. So anyway, this boy joins us, And we chant Hare Krishna before we start the hike. Somewhere in between the hike, we chant Narasimha prayer. We have some fruit, some prasadam, but nothing big, too overkill. This boy is very, he said he's changing his diet. So somebody gave him the Nectar of Devotion on the second or third hike, which is I thought it was very intense and deep book to give to somebody on the first reading. Even I myself find the rasa, lila, all that thing kind of disturbing sometimes. But my question is, so he said he's trying to change his diet, like I mentioned. So what is a good book to give him? Also question.
Science of Self-Realization. Favorite? Anyone else want to answer?
Jesus and Christ. Krishna.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, I thought you were going to ask about age brackets. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Boy, so many questions. What should I do? Should we go on? Tell me, everybody, you want to go on with questions and answers, or do you want to take Okay. Two more questions. Okay.
I had one question.
Brief question.
So with this message, this is such a nice presentation. Now there are so many people when we go back to our communities, we'll see not everybody is really enthusiastic about this idea of, men's group or so, and we have, okay, maybe I fall under 30 to 45, but then there are those who are 46 and who have different
These are approximate.
right. Now I'm just saying it, but they have different flavors, in relationship. They have already built that close relationship among themselves. But I'm an outsider now. But I also want to fit in, or other way around. We have a group. So how do we pitch this idea that, hey, why don't we have this group? This is important. And they might even come back and say that no, this is just material stuff. We want to become pure devotees.
Well, that's why we wanted to do this presentation, so that everyone here at least could get an idea about the value of this. It may be hard to convince others, I don't know, but there are books. You might look up A Circle of Men is one book that can help persuade people to give it a try. The age brackets are somewhat flexible, but if you don't have people in your community with whom you can establish a group, consider a virtual group that you can have with other people that you might meet here today. Okay? Yes, Prabhu. Last question.
Thank you. I think the goal is to have safe spaces of different kinds.
Yes.
Men's group, women's group, mixed group, black group, Bengali group, whatever. As per Nectar of Devotion, the loving exchanges that actually not happened so far in several instances. And therefore, the Karuna Care training, ISKCON.org, provides training where we can deal with the emotional side of bhakti. I think these trainings will come handy for all of the things that we're trying to do in terms of creating safe spaces where we can reveal our mind and then progress in bhakti.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's a very good point, Prabhu. There's a lot of overlap with Karuna Care, and this is sort of triage Karuna Care, or self-administered support and counseling that comes informally, unprofessionally, but from a shared interest in Krishna consciousness. We do get the same kind of benefit. All right, great. Thank you very much, everybody. Was this helpful? Did you feel like you were able to? Break up into groups by age bracket and just have some candid discussions amongst yourselves. Could you do a men's group in your area? And if you can't do it in your area, would you be interested in forming one here, and a virtual men's group that you could see if you could get up and running over the coming year and check in with us next year at the 7th Tantra retreat, okay? So yeah, if it's not possible to do it locally, consider doing one virtually and exchange information if you're interested in it, okay? So let's have everybody who is under 30. All right, Paul, may I have your attention? Hare Krishna. Okay, everybody under 30, kindly go to the back corner of the room where Mahatma and Bhakti Marg Maharaj are conversing. All those who are, again, under 30.
Oh, I am under 30.
30 to 45 over here. 45 to 60 back here, and then 16 over here.